So moving on, in a similar vein, the Catholic Church is threatening to excommunicate priests who don't follow a new law. Guess what the new law is? It's a law that makes them mandatory reporters when they find out about child abuse.
Oh.
Oh, just do what Gray Still Plays does and smash their Acons with a sword or something for the sponsorship. So fun fact, I actually did ask. So the first pair of Raycons that they sent me, I was like, they're my shower buds because they say they're water resistant or whatever. So I wanted to do a bit where I like used them in the shower and did part of the ad read like in the shower with shampoo all over my hair or whatever. It's like I tested them. I put them in my ears. I used them in the shower. I shampooed my hair, rinsed, made sure they got wet, made sure they got shampoo on them to see how they held up. And it was fine. So I'm like, I want to advertise that. I feel like that would be a good selling point. But they're like, no. They said, no, you can't do that. So I'm like, okay, fine. The new set, when I went to the website, they advertise that they can survive being put in the wash. My old Raycons died when I put them in the wash. So I'm like, this is perfect for me. Can I put them in the wash on purpose to test that claim? And they were like, no, don't do that. Please don't do that. I'm like, but you advertise it this time. I get the shower thing. You didn't want me doing that because you didn't say that that was okay. Clean your ears. Yes, I know to clean my ears. I don't wear buds in the shower every time. But
I have forgotten and
yeah,
just brought my earbuds in with me when I've gone to the gym shower.
I can't do that. I am constantly aware when I'm wearing headphones. I actually don't particularly like earbuds. I prefer over the ear, but they don't get along with my glasses. Which, for the record, are not fixed. I just bent the thing back and the arms stayed attached, but they're a little bit crooked now. And if I have another incident, they will just be done forever. But they're good enough for now. But yeah, so Catholic Church, Washington State made it. Okay, we got the highlights. So Washington State passed a bill to make Catholic priests mandatory reporters because they had an exemption before. Mandatory reporter, if you're not familiar, that's like teachers and doctors and things. When they have good reason to believe that there is abuse of a child, they're required to report it to law enforcement or child protective services. Priests have been exempt from that because of the sacrament of the confessional, where if we learn about it in confession, that is a sacred place. So we cannot violate the sanctity of the confessional by telling, because then people won't confess to us anymore. And it's important that they be able to confess because they need to be absolved of their sins. It's like, okay, this is exactly what I'm talking about in my videos when I talk about how Christianity encourages people to, instead of actually seeking to repair relationships and earn forgiveness from the people that you wronged, you instead just apologize in your heart and now everything's fine. But the person that you wronged is still, they get the short end of the stick. So this is exactly that. Like, yeah. No, the whole point of confessing is that you're supposed to be repentant. If you are repentant, then you should turn yourself into the police. So if you're not willing to turn yourself into the police, then the confession should be null and void anyway. So the way I see it, if you're confessing that to your priest, yeah, the priest can be a mandatory reporter, and that should be fine. But yeah, so the new law demands that Catholic priests violate their deeply held faith in order to obey the law, a violation of the Constitution and a breach of the free exercise of religion. That's what Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon.
We can just start abusing this, though, and say that it's a tenet of whatever faith I make up to do all kinds of horrible things and not report all kinds of horrible things.
We've seen that tried. It usually doesn't work, especially with the Supreme Court. It wouldn't work. We all know that in the United States, when it says religious freedom, it really means Christian freedom.
Yeah, it does, but it's still one of those things where to keep it consistent, to keep that law consistent with how it should be applied, then it should apply to every religion. The fact that
Yeah.
judges get to pretend that it doesn't, I'm less interested in, but it is interesting that they pretend that way.
Yeah. Now, to be clear, this article did come from Newsweek. Newsweek is a little bit of a right-wing organization. So if you want to see how it's being handled on the left, head to ground.news/fight. Fuck off.
But you could have done that. You could have done that one right there. And then you'd have that sweet, sweet ground news money.
No, they don't want to sponsor the watering hole, even though this would actually be the more appropriate sponsorship for them. Yeah, no. So the Governor Bob Ferguson signed SB 5375 into law, which will on July 27th make it a legal requirement for Catholic priests to report any suspected child abuse or neglect that they hear about during confession to the relevant authorities. Archbishop Paul Etienne of Seattle said, while we remain committed to protecting minors and all vulnerable people from abuse, priests cannot comply with this law if the knowledge of abuse is obtained during the sacrament of reconciliation. Counterpoint, if your organization forbids people from actually protecting minors and vulnerable people from abuse,
Then you don't care
then
about
you are
minors
not
and
actually
vulnerable
committed to protecting minors and vulnerable people from abuse.
You'd rather pay lip service to it than actually do it.
Yeah. And it's the sacrament of reconciliation, they're calling it. Well, reconciliation would generally involve the person that you wronged being reconciled with you. So this, again, points out that it's just saying you're sorry to an invisible sky daddy instead of actually reconciling with the people that you actually wronged. And yes, sometimes if you apologize to your abuse victim and turn yourself into police, you will go to jail. I'm okay with that. And if you are truly repentant, you should be too. And if you're not truly repentant, then Catholic forgiveness should not actually do anything. You should not be able to earn God's forgiveness and get your way into heaven if you are not repentant enough to be willing to serve out your sentence on earth. And the Archdiocese of Seattle commented, saying, all Catholics must know and be assured of that their confessions remain sacred, secure, and confidential, and protected by the law of the Church. No, the fuck they shouldn't. Because if you are confessing to crimes, and you are not willing to turn yourself into police, then you are not actually repentant, so the confession should be null and void anyway.
I do want to give a little pushback on that. And it's not that I don't agree with the spirit of the statement, but I feel like you kind of make a bit of a just world fallacy there, because you assume we have a justice system that will actually function properly when turning yourself in.
Yeah, no, more than likely they'll just get a slap on the wrist. And turns out that, they're such a good Christian person turning themselves in after confessing, showing that they truly have remorse. So yeah, you get house arrest for 3 months, then probation for 6 after that. Yeah, no, that would.
Or alternatively, depending on what crime is, what crime they attest to, they might get hit with an even greater sentence than what they deserve, depending on what it is. Obviously, here we're talking about children, and that is gonna have a very big sentence and probably just end up with you being at a corpse. Like, we know what happens to people who are pedophiles, and the fact that they are pedophiles is known when you're in the prison system. But the whole, like, the correct thing to do is to turn yourself into police. I want to agree with that, but I feel like I can only agree with that in a world where we have different police.
Yeah. I get where you're coming from, but I feel like the Catholic Church would be should be able to be on board with what I've been saying, even if in reality it wouldn't play out in a way that we would necessarily like.
That's fair. That's fair. And I guess it's also from, like,
just from a PR perspective, it would be such an easy thing for the Catholic Church to be like, hey, yeah, no, we actually mean the forgiveness thing. And in order to get forgiven, you have to be willing to pay the price for the crime that you have committed. Now, I get that their whole thing is that, like, oh, well, the price for all your crimes is hell, and Jesus forgives you, so it's fine. Don't worry about it. But like, I feel like that is something that they could get on board with, especially given their history of actually like torturing people to death for crimes. So like, I don't know. They don't have a leg to stand on here. So the person who one of the sponsors of the bill, who was herself a victim of sexual abuse when she was younger, when she learned that clergy were not already mandatory reporters in Washington, this was in response to an investigation into alleged abuse within the Jehovah's Witness community in Washington state. Funny how that came up again.
Yay!
Last one was in Pennsylvania. It turns out, seems like this is one of those things where every time you look into this particular organization, you find sex abuse crimes. So like, maybe that organization should not be considered a charitable organization. And in response to the Archbishop comments, she said, we, the state of Washington, have secular legislative purpose that is to protect children from abuse and neglect, and if faith communities choose through their rules not to protect children from abuse and neglect, we, the state, are choosing not to be complicit in that choice by their rules. That is the correct stance.
It's one of those things where you get to say, as an atheist, secularism or pluralism, whichever one you want to go with, is going to end up yielding better results for legislation than trying to go with just strictly the Christian argument.
Yeah. And apparently the Trump administration is looking into this situation. I don't know why. This is supposed to be one of those things that is, you know, states' rights and all that. This is a Washington state law. What does the Trump administration have to do with that?
The situation with
So this is federal, this is executive overreach, the thing that Republicans have supposedly been against.
I think it's a good idea to never be indignant or appalled when Republicans end up being hypocritical. It's just better to smear their faces in it.
Yeah, no, I'm not indignant or appalled. I just would like to point it out.
Oh, no, I understand. So the reason
if we just let it slide, then...
No, they're just going to keep doing it. No, so, have you ever seen the channel, The Soy Pill?
No.
So, he's a bodybuilder who used to be a right-wing guy and then moved over to the left wing after, you know, realizing that people here are less stupid. And he makes it a point to make a lot of content about how to talk to right-wingers and how to get people who were in that world on your side. And one of the reason that I even mentioned that is I recently watched a video from him that made a really good point, and he even had a conversation with a right-winger at the dude's house to kind of illustrate this. Doing the whole, aren't you supposed to be this? Doesn't that make you a hypocrite? It's a thing that has been said so often now that most people on the right wing just tune it out, and it ceases being an effective mechanism for moving people further left.
Yeah. I mean, it's still important to call it out, though.
It's important to call it out, but what he pointed out is that there's two scenarios. Scenario A, you're talking with an individual person. Calling this out in that way doesn't do a lot for that individual person. But on the flip side, if you're a person who has an audience and your job is to put on a show, at that point, playing into your audience's expectation will end up working better. So like what we're doing here on the channel is the latter. So it makes perfect sense to call it out here in that way, because there's not a person to like backfire on you when you're doing that. There's not a person like that to consider. They're in the comment section. They're going to get mad no matter what you say, so who cares about them?
Yeah. So Jas is saying that Trump will attack this as a First Amendment question. So, yeah, and I know that this is not at all how they are going to see it, but I feel like it's fairly clear that when the First Amendment says that the shall make no law regarding the establishment of religion, having a law exempting religions from things is actually a violation of that. because it's saying, oh, this law applies equally to everyone. Oh, except for religion. We're going to approve certain religions and certain religious positions to be able to violate this law. So I feel like that's actually the violation, but I absolutely know that you'll never hear anyone on the right suggest that. Adam Conover was on Timcast. Am I going to have to watch an episode of Timcast? I don't want to watch that asshole. He's just painfully dumb.
He is painfully dumb.
Like, he's not even, it's not even in a funny way. He's just dumb.
Did you watch his debate with Sam Cedar ages ago?
No. I barely watch anything that he's in because he's just so painfully dumb.
So with the Sam Cedar debate, I remember a moment where friggin' Tim is just going, okay, but Sam, don't you understand that utilitarianism is often used for the villain in most movies? And Sam's just like, I don't care.
I think I've seen this clip.
I don't care. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, I think I've seen that clip. But also, like, utilitarianism is the one that actually, like, works the best.
Because it
Like,
has, say it with me now.
In the practical world that we live in.
It's because it has, and say it with me now, utility. It's in the name.
Yeah. But what about the utility monster? Well, the utility monster doesn't fucking exist, so who cares?
The utility monster?
Have you not heard that?
No, I haven't. What's this?
The objection to utilitarianism is that, like, well, because the idea is that you maximize well-being and minimize harm.
Mm-hmm.
So what if a being existed who derived so much pleasure from the harming of others that the actual moral math calculation thing would mean that we have to feed everybody to the utility monster?
Oh, see, that just sounds
because
like
that
one of the
maximizes.
most, that sounds like one of the most stupid responses you could give to utilitarianism. Because
the philosophers are not going to like you for saying that.
I don't give a shit about the philosophers. They're fucking morons. They spend more time thinking about what to do instead of actually doing things. So, here's my response to the quote utility monster. No one individual can ever derive enough pleasure to justify the suffering of millions, billions, whatever number you want to put in there. No one individual gets enough out of that for that equation. All of the numbers are made up in any way, shape, and form that you put them anyway, so I can just make up my own numbers and put those ones here.
So I am sending you a link to my video where I actually... and while I was writing the script for that one, I just kind of stumbled into the concept of like, oh, wait a minute. In my description of the utility monster, I just described the God of the Bible. Like, that is why morality has to, like utilitarianism with the utility monster actually explains why morality has to be based in God's nature, because God is the utility monster. He derives so much pleasure from making sure that people that disagree with him suffer, that's what makes hell okay. That's so, yeah. Oh, did Conover try and plug his crypto scam? Is Conover doing crypto shit?
Wait, what? I haven't heard him say anything about crypto, and I watch a lot of his shit. I feel like he would be
a monster that gets infinite pleasure from harming others. You mean capitalism? Yes, indeed.
Adam did a sponsored video for WorldCoin, both a crypto and high-tech company, and his demographic is very anti-crypto, anti-high-tech. It's received significant backlash.
But taking a sponsorship does not mean that he has a crypto scam. Those are two different things. But anyways, Forrest Wren says, compassionate utilitarianism is my favorite moral code. Okay, to the best of my knowledge, I coined the term compassionate utilitarianism. So I'm going to assume that you got that from me. So thank you. Now, in reality, I'm an idiot. So the idea that I'm the first person to put those two words together is very unlikely. But in my brain, I am the first person to do that.
Just claim you're the first person and then say that you're the best person who did it.
I
And
don't have the arrogance for that.
and then say that everybody around you says that it's amazing that you were the first and the best person to do it, and your numbers are better than everybody else on this, and it's so astounding. And you're not the one saying this, though. You got to remember, it's other people who are saying this. You're just the messenger here.
People say I'm the greatest because I coined compassionate utilitarianism. I don't know. It's funny. This is one of those things that I feel like you know what? I'm gonna Google it right now. Not where you can see it. Compassionate utilitarianism. Compassionate utilitarianism on Cambridge.org. I'm a little bit disappointed that there isn't a top result wasn't a Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy entry. But yeah, no, I'm not the first person to come up with that. Let's see what I saw. Oh, okay. I misread this. There's a website, philosophos.org. I misread it as philossobros.org. I was like, what? Philossobros? Jeremy Bentham. So apparently Fennec knows Jeremy Bentham. I saw his name while I was scrolling here, so... Oh yeah, the Cambridge one, the first thing is Compassionate Utilitarianism, the Unknown Bentham Revealed. Oh, he advocated for the Anatomy Act, which allowed people to donate their bodies to science. Because compassionate utilitarianism. Okay. There we go. See, like I said, I'm not a genius.
You just happen to share a mind with other people who might be.
His head is on display in a UK university. Okay. I'm going to be in the UK in July. What university? I'm going to have... Okay. God damn it. You're getting me off track. Jeremy Bentham, Head, UK University. That's a note for me to read later.
Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I really could not do any of this without all of you. Those of you watching, and especially those of you who support me on Patreon. I wanted to go ahead and take a minute to thank all of you who do that, because with YouTube being what it is these days, I really cannot do this full time without the support from each and every one of you.
Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Tales of Atonement, Nixie Chan, Kiri Artemis, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that,
Leela Ururaka,
Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fire Shard.
Thank you so very much. But since you're here, why not go ahead and try watching another one? There should be one that's on the screen right now. And if you are a patron of mine, I wanted to go ahead and thank you again for all of your support. There is still a video you could press though, if you'd like. I would appreciate it just a little bit.